On Thanksgiving weekend 2025, while Canadians were celebrating with their families, Taiwo Fayemi and her 9 children were being escorted onto a plane back to Nigeria. Her 16-year-old daughter, Amirat, was fighting leukemia. Bone marrow transplant could save Amirat's life, but Canada sent them back home to Nigeria. Taiwo and her 9 children, 6 of whom were her biological and 3 were her stepchildren, left Nigeria to the US for vacation. And during their stay in the US, Amirat became ill. And even while in the US, they heard that their father was under political threat, so they could not come back to Nigeria. So they had to make their way to Canada to claim asylum. So while they were waiting for their asylum claim to process, they made friends, they settled, the children started school. I'm sure Taiwo herself got hard work, while Amirat was also receiving care in Canada. And I'm sure in their mind, they'll say, if for nothing, at least because of how sick that child was, they would allow them stay. But Canada's refugee system does not make decisions based on emotion or sympathy. 3 years later, their asylum claim was denied, and they were asked to go back to Nigeria. The ROCC said they denied their claim because there was not enough proof to show that when they get back to Nigeria, they would be facing any danger. When that news broke, many people were surprised. Some were furious, but there were also others that said, yes, they should go back to their country. Among Canadians, among Nigerians in Canada, and even outside of Canada, people were asking, how can Canada do this? In spite of this family having a sick child, and in spite of this girl being sick, they were asking her to go back to Nigeria. We were wondering, where is the compassion? Where is the Canada we know for being polite, being liberal, welcoming to everybody, But here's what most of us did not realize while we were thinking along those lines. Canada can deport people because of sickness. And now this family is being deported in spite of the sickness of one of their children. I could understand those that were saying, this is inhumane, this is heartless. How can you deport a child this sick? But when I found out that Canada has a law which has been in existence for over 150 years, under which they could deport somebody because they were sick. It's called medical inadmissibility. All those times we do medical exams during our application process. Those medical exams are not just for show. They actually look at them. In the 1860s, when they started this, it was meant to stop people with contagious sicknesses from coming into the country so they don't infect other people and put a strain on the Canadian medical system. If somebody had tuberculosis, for instance, that was grounds for being denied entry into Canada. But this law expanded further from those contagious sicknesses to other sicknesses that will put a strain on not just their medical system now, but also their social services. For instance, if a child will need special education, maybe they have autism, Down syndrome, some kind of cancer, or some kind of serious illness that they think will put a strain on their medical system, that was legal grounds for denial. This has been going on since then. So Canada, that everybody will say, oh, where is the compassion? Why are they deporting a family with a sick child? But now, knowing that Canada could deport a family because they have a sick child was eye-opening. And this law is still there till today, but they have toned it down. So something happened. In 2010, a professor in York University, Ontario, Professor Felipe Montoya from Costa Rica, came to Canada with his family. He was teaching in York University, and when time came, he was ready to apply for permanent resident, but his application was rejected. Why? The reason they gave was that his 12-year-old son, Nicholas, who had Down syndrome, would put a strain on their social services. They had to reject their permanent residency application. And the thing with this law is that if there's one person in the family that is deemed medically inadmissible, it affects everybody. So they won't just deport the one person, they deport the whole family because of the one child. So Felipe and his family went back to Costa Rica, but they did not go quietly. They made noise. journalists, everybody. He was making video campaigns. I'll see if I can put his video campaign. Very touching video campaign. And people were talking about it. So under that pressure, the Minister of Immigration stepped forward and offered Felipe's family a one-time exemption. But all this did not change the law. It took 2 years later for the law to be tweaked. Because before, if a person's medical expenses would cost more than $6,000 and some change on top in a year, they were deemed medically inadmissible. But because of this noise the professor made, they now increased it to ×3, so that it's not like if a person's medical expenses will cost more than 27,000 in a year, that's when they will say it's medically inadmissible. The law is still there. It has not changed. It just increased the threshold so that less people are caught in it. Many people were surprised. How can Canada do this? This is inhumane. Where is the Canada that is so liberal with free healthcare, welcoming to everybody? Now let's be clear. Felipe's case and Fayemi's case are two different cases. One was denied because they had a sick child. That's Felipe. While Fayemi was deported because the immigration said they did not believe their case. Felipe was a legal resident. He had a visa. And the Fayemis crossed the border, but the immigration did not believe their story. They felt they did not have proof enough to show that, yes, their lives were really under danger if they were sent back home to Nigeria. So even though Felipe's case was resolved under the humanitarian and compassionate grounds, Fayemi was not so lucky. Different stories, but they both prove one thing. Canada doesn't bend its rules for compassion. Once your status no longer qualifies, policy overrides emotions. So after their refugee claim was denied, Taiwo and her kids filed a humanitarian and compassionate application. That too was denied. Amira's doctor said she cannot fly. But immigration went and brought their own doctor who said she's very okay to fly. And the CBSA officers had a legal obligation to make sure they remove the family. So, on Thanksgiving weekend of 2025, Taiwo Fayemi and her 9 children were deported back to Nigeria. And if you notice, Canada's immigration is tightening more and more every day. Just the other day, CBSA officers went to a building site in Calgary for a raid. This is very rare. Canada used to be the plan C for many people. Now it's almost plan A for most people. So there's a lot of people coming, and they have rolled out new immigration rules, which we'll be talking about in our next policy video. So while we cannot agree that it's a heartbreaking situation, for Canada, it was an enforcement. They go by their law. They don't do a beg when the law states a different thing. While we were all feeling bad that, Canada deported somebody despite being sick, we have to remember that Canada can deport somebody, legal resident, because of being sick. This is the other side of Canada many people don't know. They are used to the compassionate, the calm, polite, free healthcare, everybody is welcome Canada. So when people ask, how can Canada deport a sick child? The answer is simple. They can. And they've been doing it legally over a century. Canada is just being consistent with its policy. So if you're in Canada on a temporary visa or your PRO is still processing, understand this. Medical issues can even be a cause for denial or deportation. So the takeaway isn't that Canada is wicked. It's this. Don't mistake a country's politeness for leniency. Thank you for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.